This came in a minute ago. It says a minute ago. This came in a few seconds ago. I was laying in my bed. I was just scrolling through shit, trying to look at, what I'm going to say next in my, my predictions, what I'm going to make my next video about. And guess what comes up? Belal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns, 5 rounds for UFC 288 May 6th, confirmed by none other than DW, Dana White. Co-main event, 5 rounds. That card is saved. Also, guess what else happened? The previous co-main event, for UFC 288 between Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush was rescheduled for the pay-per-view after one that a lot of people are hating on, UFC 289. Not only is UFC 288 saved completely, but so is UFC 289. I don't really know what to say. I don't really know what to say about this one. We were doubting the UFC. We were all doubting the UFC. We thought May's pay-per-view and June's pay-per-view are going to be very weak. It's going to be bad. There's not going to be enough hype. It's not going to do any pay-per-view numbers. The main events are bad. The co-main events, people thought it was going to be Andrade versus Yan Xiaonan. People thought that there was going to be no hype there. Guess what? Belal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns pulled through. This is Burns' third fight in 2023. He just had a fight not even a month ago. He had a fight 2 weeks ago, and he's already coming back. Very impressive. And Belal Muhammad as well, for someone who was, very off weight, someone who's like 190 something pounds, right? Who's also coming off of a long month of Ramadan. Both of these guys turning around very quickly to save this event for us, the fans. And that's why we have to appreciate these fighters. We have to appreciate what they're doing for the sport and for the fans and for the pay-per-view numbers and for the people that pay tickets to actually go to these events, especially these two men. They just completely saved UFC 289, completely saved UFC 288. I am for sure going to be tuning into these cards. I was going to anyways, but now I'm excited. Now I'm very excited for what's next for these fighters, these fights, and these cards. The anticipation is there. The anticipation is there. It's 5 rounds this fight. This fight is still 3 rounds, which that's okay. I'm okay with this fight being 3 rounds. This is a 3-roundable fight. It's all good, right? This fight needed to be 5 rounds, and they made it 5 rounds. So you know what? UFC, they always pull it off. The UFC always comes out on top in these kind of fight. What do you call it? These matchups. They always come up with the good matchups. They always save certain cards. The UFC knows what they're doing, guys, and we doubted them. I doubted the UFC, and now guess what happens? Belal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, 5 rounds co-main event for UFC 288. Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush rescheduled for UFC 289. Guys, we cannot keep doubting the UFC's matchmaking skills, bro, or their ability to save cards or save pay-per-views, fight nights, matchups, whatever it may be. UFC does not fail to impress me in these matchups, and everything played out perfectly. Big respects to all 4 of these fighters, all 4 of them, and yeah, at least as of right now, it's all played out for the best. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next 2 weeks, in the next month, where maybe all these fights get canceled and the cards are bad again. Who knows? But at least as of right now, these cards are saved. The fans are happy, and the fighters are happy. The people paying money are happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. And yeah, I don't really know what much else to say about these fights. Belal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns. It's going to be a bit of a weird fight, especially since they're both turning around so quickly. Not Belal Muhammad, but Belal Muhammad's going to obviously have to cut a lot of weight. He's going to have to, come back into training after a month of Ramadan. Gilbert Burns just fought 2 weeks ago. Not even 2 weeks ago, right? So It's going to be pretty weird for him to turn around, even though he didn't take too much damage against Masvidal, didn't take too much damage against Neil Magny. It's really cool how he's being so active now. I find that really cool. I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing, especially since he wasn't very active, in between Wonder Boy and Hamza and then Neil Magny. He wasn't that active, which was okay because his activity was fine. But now it's just we're seeing Gilbert Burns fights all the time. This guy fought in the last pay-per-view co-main event, and now he's fighting one pay-per-view later on this pay-per-view's co-main event. I think that's really cool. But how will that affect him going into this fight? We'll find out. We'll see. I don't think it'll affect him too much. I think Gilbert Burns will definitely have the advantage because he has been more active than Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad will have to get into that activity. He'll have to make himself active once again. Gilbert Burns, he's kind of already there. Or maybe he's not there because, he's already off the training, the wake up, whatever. But he's going to get back into it, and it's not going to be that difficult for him to get back into that, that shape. Because he's been so active throughout this year. Gilbert Burns is going to look very nice in this fight. He's going to look very good in this fight. I see this fight going to a decision for sure. I see it being a nice 5-round fight that goes to a decision. Belal Muhammad, on the feet, Gilbert Burns I think is much better. But on the ground, I think Belal Muhammad might have just a slight edge. He might, maybe, I'm not sure about that. Listen, Gilbert Burns, he was doing really well in the ground against Jorge Masvidal, a guy who doesn't have very good wrestling. Neil Magny, who isn't the best wrestler, who isn't the best on the ground. Gilbert Burns is just much better. He was also much higher ranked. He did decently against Hamza on the ground. Then again, most of the fight wasn't spent on the ground. It was a lot of striking, but both of these guys, they're both very good on the ground. And who's going to be better on the ground? I'd have to look into this fight more to make a proper pick. But as to who I think wins this fight, early prediction, I say Gilbert Burns by UD. 48-47. That's my early prediction for this fight. For Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, we've known this fight was going to happen for a while already. Not much else to say already that a lot of people don't already have their opinions on. All I know is that it's going to be a very fun fight. UFC saved both of these cards. They were already pretty decent cards already, but now they're pay-per-view. Now they're pay-per-view cards. Now they're up there for sure. And very happy with how these cards turned out, how these fights turned out, and let's hope that the cards stay this way because UFC 289 is looking really good. UFC 288 is looking really good, especially with these fights. These cards are looking good. You cannot disagree with me on that. And double fight announcement, double co-main event announcement, and I think that's incredible. That's amazing. And don't know what they're gonna put for International Fight Week because they've got so many good fights for 288 and 289. I don't know what they're gonna put on 290. I truly don't know what they've got in store for 290 International Fight Week, but it's got to be something crazy, something that I won't see coming. But Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, UFC 289, Belal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, UFC 288 is happening. These cards are saved.